Face front, true believers. Blue Dragon 5 here. Here to talk about... Oh, sorry.
Oh.
I was going to build you up, Rohit. Sorry about that.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Anyway, so let me introduce you right now. Joining me, fearless compatriot, Rohit Dar. Say hi, Rohit.
Hi, everyone.
And joining us on comms, Sticky.
Ahoy, hoy.
All right, folks.
Rohit, I'm terribly sorry. I keep getting your name wrong. I was saying Rohith behind the scenes, like the whole time we were behind the scenes. I'm terribly sorry about that. Now I feel bad.
That's all right. I think I mentioned it to Blue Dragon like after we were done with the video. It's a non-issue. It's all right.
For sure,
yeah,
for sure.
Anyway, folks, we're finally gathered to talk about the Black Widow movie. It finally came out in both theaters and on Disney Plus. So we've all seen. At least I hope you've all seen. Otherwise, you're going to be spoiled the heck out of for this thing. Because we're talking spoilers. Yeah. So
Howard the Duck is the leader of the Red Room.
I know no one ever saw that coming. I can't wait to see the what if on that one. You know, I mean, the what if is going to be crazy on that.
Oh my god. Okay, we got Donovan Martin chatting up a storm in the comments. Donovan, I'll address some of your comments as we go through them. Guys, I'm not going to be here the whole time, just so you know. Dragon and Rohith are going to be covering the lion's share of this, and I appreciate that very much so. I'm just literally at the tail end of a long work week where I've been working outside in 100-degree heat, so I'm just kind of checked out at this point. But Dragon, you mind if I just dive right into my thesis?
Yeah, start us off.
Okay, so I like this movie a little better than I thought it would, but it's still kind of, for me, is just kind of like all right. It was good. It was solid. I have some hot takes, which I'll get to, but before that, I have a little antidote. Now, I did upload a quick vlog from the theater, and guys, let me just say, I just seeing an MCU movie in theaters again it's just magical. I love it. I love that theaters are back. Getting that out of the way. So my theater was actually a half hour late with the screening because I don't know. I guess something was wrong with the projection or something. I think the screening started about 40 minutes after the scheduled showtime, and the whole time it was just kind of like the house lights were up. So it was a very weird vibe in there because half of the people were still excited and like honestly kind of like the anticipation of the movie coming on was like even a bigger build-up than just if the movie had just come on normally. And then half the people were pissed. Half the people want their money back. Yeah, the movie, it's funny because they kind of came on, they kind of gave us a rough estimate about a half hour in, like, it'll be about 15, 20 minutes, and then about 12 minutes later, just kind of, like, comes up, the house lights are still on, it takes a minute to dim, no trailers, which was weird. So yes, indeed, guys, just as a follow-up to that vlog, it was very much just a situation of like, oh, this is it's the first MCU movie post-pandemic, and there's a huge crowd gathered in here, and we're all excited, and the movie isn't working. So I just had to vlog about it. Anyways, like I said, I like the movie fine. I think it's got some solid action. Highlight obviously being Florence Pugh. Like, Florence Pugh is just absolutely killing it, man. She is just I'm just a huge fanboy of her, just unabashedly. She had a killer year. She's had a killer past couple of years. Unfortunately, here we go. Here's my hot take. You guys ready? Dragon knows what it is. One of the things that people are loving about this movie that I didn't really get into was Red Guardian. Because I just kind of thought it was like a repeat of like the fat Thor beats of like, oh, he's out of shape and he's washed up. but it didn't really have any of the character development of Fat Thor. So I don't know. I'm just kind of sick of that level of humor. Red Guardian has a lot of potential as a character for sure. I wish they would have. I wish he wouldn't have just been the butt of the joke so much. I wanted to take him more seriously than the movie was taking him, if that makes sense. Because I do genuinely think his story has a lot of pathos, but like even in the moments where like we're trying to take it seriously, it's kind of just cobbled over with the typical MCU humor. So Red Guardian to me, like I really wanted to like Red Guardian more than I did, but I understand I'm totally in the minority. Most people love him. I get that. And also I just want to just go on a little bit of a rant. See that guy on the thumbnail that's right below the word cast? This dude is like one of the most useless characters in the history of the MCU, in my opinion.
Yeah, he got him a Quinjet. Come on.
I'm just saying, from a characterization point of view, I would have really preferred if he was just like some sketchy arms deal. Like the fact that they made it like I'm your best friend, Natasha. Like we've been friends for so long and we trust each other. It's the fact that they tried to force feed this guy a dynamic, and I really like. Why is he a character? Why is he even a thing? Like, I understand that you have to have someone to give her the Quinjet. I get that, but like, oh man, he really fell flat for me in terms of just like, I do not understand what this dude is even doing in the movie and why he's supposedly got such a big past with Natasha. Unless I'm assuming it's just to put him up as a red herring, maybe. I don't know. But generally speaking, guys, like I said, I don't have a ton to say about this one. I think it's a solid MCU entry. I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit worried about the next couple MCU entries, but, you know, we got Spider-Man and Doctor Strange is really exciting. So, yeah, I'll throw it to Rohit. What do you think of it?
I would say it was a really solid movie. I really liked it better than I expected. I think leading up to it, my expectations were, I don't know if deflated is the right word, but I wasn't as excited for this movie as I think it was, say, last year. But watching it, I was really surprised in how the movie opened, sort of its core theme of family. I think Yelena Belova, played by Florence Pugh, and Red Guardian, played by David Harbour, the highlights of the movie. The action, I think, is good. I think Winter Soldier is still the top tier or the king in terms of like action choreography in the MCU. But Black Widow has some really good sequences. But I do think there are certain places where the movie doesn't fall flat so much as that it was okay or good, but it could have been better in certain scenes or certain choices made. So I'll get more into that once in going through the movie linearly.
Okay. Here are my thoughts. Also, just want to highlight we have Donovan Martin in the comments.
Yeah, Dragon, by all means, he's chatting up a storm. I can't really keep up with it, but if you want
there's a few things to shout out. We're basically we'll definitely be shouting out Donovan throughout the conversation, so the points made, if not more points to be made soon. But just one in direction of you, Tiki. I think Red Guardian used the Mr. Incredible temple, which I think that shows in places for sure. Yeah,
like I said, I got it more as of a Fat Thor template. I don't think he's.
I did not get the Fat Thor thing.
Incredible, but.
I did not get that.
See, I think in regards to the sort of the fat humor regarding Red Guardian, I feel like it's less obnoxious than, say, Thor. Because, like, at least with Red Guardian, like, the whole conceit of the character is that he's just, like, a boastful, like, he's sort of like boastful Loki in the sense he just, hypes up all his achievements, and the humor is just how delusional he is. And so him being fat is not as central to the humor.
They made two fat jokes. That's really it when you think about it. This made the pig joke and the suit joke.
Yeah, I feel like Fat Thor, like, a lot of jokes were made up on, like, him gaining weight, like, from Rocket, from War Machine, from a lot of people. So I feel like the jokes made at, when Red Guardian is the butt of the joke, it's more of his personality.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Fat Thor, it's really just more on his physical appearance. So
I mean, I want to make it clear, I like Red Guardian better than I like
sure.
Fat Thor.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Okay. So here's my thesis on the movie. So Blackwood, long delayed MCU film. Release. The release has kind of rearranged Phase 4 for certain. In terms of all the stuff was tied in. Like, first we're going to close the book with Black Widow, and then we're going to unleash, Phase 4 through Disney Plus and onward. Things obviously have gotten a little.
It's weird. I like I said, I really think the next few MCU movies are kind of like in this awkward. Like, I feel like we'll see about Shang-Chi, because I really don't know what that's going to offer us. As far as the overall like tying into the MCU goes, but Eternals is going to be weird. I don't know. But so, this one definitely does not feel like it slates into the whole like multiverse angle that we've been going with the Lokis and the WandaVisions of the world.
No, it doesn't, because again, this was like the transitional film into that, which now is
right.
Again out of sorts because of the world business. So.
By the way, I had to do so much verbal gymnastics to remind my dad who Valentina was. I was like, remember Falcon and Winter Soldier, the fake Captain America, and then the lawyer lady that came in at the end. I was like, oh God, how do I explain this? He only saw that episode once.
Just morally questionable Nick Fury. It's really all you need. He's like the potentially evil Nick Fury. Anyway, well, don't worry, Donovan. We'll talk Val much later on. We'll get to her. So, anyway, back to the thesis. So, obviously, my favorite MCU film is Winter Soldier, without question. So you can understand my anticipation for this with how pivotal a role Black Widow had in that film. And seeing like, okay, well, this looks like we're kind of on the same Winter Soldier track. I'm looking very forward to this. So I was very much anticipating, this film, as well as like an epilogue for the Black Widow character. Like, okay, that's kind of a nice like resuscitation on like, okay, we're going to reflect on Black Widow as we transition. That's kind of as like Spider-Man had the epilogue, the things, and now Black Widow has her epilogue, the thing. It's nice. So this movie is very much. Here's the thing. The embarrassing truth of the matter is we should have given Black Widow a film much earlier, and that's no state secret. We should have given Black Widow a film much earlier in the MCU. Than waiting till after we killed her to give her a movie finally. Let's be honest. I had at the end of the day, I had a really good time with it. There are a couple issues I have, but I want to make something very clear. This is no Captain Marvel, folks. Thank goodness.
Oh God, no! Oh my God, no! This is way.
So don't let anyone like picking apart things about the movie.
This actually has a solid arc and story to it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I have a couple issues with the movie. Emphasis on couple. I can count them on one hand personally. Things that actually kind of make.
I would say this movie's like a solid 7 out of 10 for me. It's.
I'd probably be more generous with an 8. But fair enough. So that's the thing. I mean, here's the thing. I kind of the plot's simple and direct, but maybe a little too simple in two specific areas, which again are my problem areas of the movie. That's what I'm saying. Sure. Like, I like the simplicity and the flow of it all, but again, when you think about in kind of an espionage kind of thing, maybe we shouldn't be that simple with this. I don't know.
Hey, I'm Ray Woodstone. I'm going to show up. I'm going to give you a valiant effort, but I'm not going to make much of an impression. That's me, Ray Winstone.
That's awful.
Yeah, I see your point, Blue Dragon. I think the way Black Widow goes about like spies or espionage, it goes in the like Mission Impossible formula, where at least the more recent films, where they're less like, I mean, there's some espionage with the gadgets and like the mask and all that, and that's part of the movie. But really, those were just like, all right, what crazy action scenes could we do? And I think that just sort of the aspect of the spy genre that Black Widow more embraced, and it's more easier to like for the MCU formula, whatever issues you have with it, just sort of embrace and surround. And I think the espionage stuff, it's like you would have had a more traditional like espionage if, say, there was a Black Widow movie where she's working for SHIELD and she's infiltrating or double agent. But this is like a much more different story, so you can't have the traditional like espionage stuff that maybe some people would want.
Yeah, we've kind of taken away a lot of the toys from the playground at this point, and how far the MCU's progressed. And like, yeah, there's no Shield anymore. She's not exactly. Nick Fury was kind of off the board in Civil War, so we can't have him back. It's like, yeah.
And by the same token, we're also taking away toys that we've gained since this point in the timeline. Like any notion of the multiverse or any cosmic stuff. I mean, I understand it's not that kind of movie, but like coming off of Loki, it's a little bit of a tone shift.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which again, I think it's not the movie's fault, but now it's
it's not. Yeah, absolutely not. No.
Yeah. Just kind of the way it's kind of like turned out for it, unfortunately.
I mean, it doesn't tie into the multiverse stuff, but considering the post-credits scene, like it does certainly set up like there's like seems to be like two overarching storylines for Phase 4. There's like the multiverse cosmic stuff, and then there's the Thunderbolt stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm gonna shout out a couple comments. Yeah, sure, Dick. Sure. Yeah, I'm gonna shout out some comments here that correlate to what we just said. Atomic Beast in the comments. Welcome, Atomic Beast. He says nowadays, superheroine movies are either subpar or downright bad, as if Lisa Simpson wants to shove down
this is like so much better than like I would say even the likes of Captain Marvel is so much better than like the Electras or the Catwomans of the world, right? I mean, we've made progress.
Yeah, he used to go on to say only Wonder Woman did it right, and then goes on to say the Black Widow film creators should have learned how to do female spies from the anime print. You give an example of an anime may have done something along the lines of more espionage-centric thing. Princess Principal, if I'm reading that right. It looks like Princess Principal.
No idea, but Atomic Beast, I'm not trying to like discredit you or anything, of course, but I don't know. I feel like we're in a step in the right direction. I honestly am really optimistic about some of the future female-driven MCU stuff, especially She-Hulk and Miss Marvel.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm very
Miss Marvel.
excited.
I'm optimistic about for very biased personal reasons that Dragon knows about, but I digress.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, that Avengers game did win me over on that character, though. Miss Marvel does seem like she has a lot of potential. And again,
but Dragon, you know why I'm stoked for that show.
I know we're very stoked for the supporting cast in that show.
I have a brief rant for Miss Marvel, specifically. It's weird to me that in the game, and hopefully, I hope this isn't the case in the show, that she's like a fanfic writer for Avengers. Like it doesn't like I would buy if she does fanfic for like Harry Potter or Star Wars, but it's just weird to me to do fanfic of like real people, and then you eventually are thrust in a position or status where you get to interact with real people. Like that just feels like kind of weird, or I don't know if he's right, where it's just like I don't know. That's always the one thing about her that it was just like.
That's a fair point, but it does happen in real life, though. People
is there
do
Phoenix
like some
Jones fanfic out there.
I'm sure there is. I'm saying that you can never underestimate the lengths of fanfic, and when you have people like internet personalities have fan fiction, where's the line there? I mean, they're real people, but they're kind of caricatures of themselves. So I don't know. I think the line, especially in the MCU, is like a wealth of material. Like, what if Iron Man, this very bigger than life character they're going around, did this? I don't know.
I'm not against the idea of Avengers fanfic. Obviously, like even regular celebrities like have fanfics of themselves, but it's just more like imagine if like someone wrote that fanfic and then somehow like became famous or powerful, or whatever, and then regularly interacted with the people that they made fan fiction of.
Well, I think so long as she stopped doing the fanfic afterwards, or tapered it down significantly, I think it could play. But I mean, I don't know. I didn't think. Yeah, I didn't think of that. That's a fair point.
Transition the fanfic into like a journalism career or something potentially.
Maybe. Oh.
I don't know.
Or just creative writing would be
right. Cool exactly. Yeah.
And Donovan says I'd take this over Captain Marvel any day. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
No question.
I mean, I think the scale is very much clearly like this is at the like Wonder Woman is probably still at the top. This is like a notch below Wonder Woman. Captain Marvel is a significant notch below this, and then like the Catwomans and Electras of the world are a significant notch below Captain Marvel.
Where's 1984 in the notches?
Oh God, that's ooh. Oh God, like probably right between, like under Captain Marvel, honestly, if I'm being honest.
I don't know.
Let's not.
Wonder Woman. Okay, look, we don't have time to get into like the whole 84 of it all. Let's just.
I mean, Dragon really likes 84. I really don't. So. All right.
Anyway, so okay, so let's just transition into
Really
kind of
quick before I kind of sign off and pass it to you guys, I do want to point out Donovan has been saying he loves the cold open and the smells like Teen Spirit montage. I absolutely agree. I thought that was like easily the most compelling thing in the whole movie.
Wasn't it the American Pie thing? Am I misremembering that? Was it Teen Spirit?
No. So I think no. So basically, Blue Dragon, to clarify. So American Pie is a song that's like plays, when
that's
like,
the Elena
like,
song.
The tape. Yeah. And it smells like Teen Spirit. Like there's a female rendition of the song that plays in the credits where you see all the footage.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
And can I say that version of Smells Like Teen Spirit is like just a notch below Pam's use of it is the best cinematic use of that. No, I'm just kidding. Monkey would probably chastise me if I didn't mention Pan at least once. All right. So, guys, I'm going to go ahead and turn it to you. I will be hanging out in the production booth. Dragon, by all means, Skype me if you need me. Skype me when this thing's wrapping up. All right. I will pass it off. Go ahead.
All right. Okay, all that said, so folks, what we're going to do here is we're going to kind of break it, because, again, the Black Widow movie is very, very straightforward, very direct in kind of how the events led, basically kind of the big highlights and kind of the big talking points. We're just going to go in kind of a linear fashion through the 3 acts. So, Act 1, we're going to talk about the 1995 flashback that kicks off the movie. So, Rohit, how'd you feel about this?
Very interesting place to start the movie. It was sort of a neat thing to have it in Ohio, because I distinctly remember, like, when Zemo went after the one Hydra operative in the beginning of Civil War. It's in Ohio, and it's specifically in Ohio because both the Russo brothers are Ohio natives. And so it's sort of a neat, tie back to, because considering there's the whole, like, North Institute that was run by SHIELD, but secretly by Hydra. So it's kind of a neat tie back that, like, I think if you're, like, more than a casual observer, that, like, that's something you would appreciate. But more so, it's like Ohio's, like, in the Midwest and, Americana. That's really, like, subtly reinforced with, like, the asking for macaroni and cheese, the American Pie song. It's like, it really shows, how far this so-called family is going into just sort of the cultural signifiers and the markers of, like, what a, like, nuclear American family looks like in, like, the 90s,
Yeah, the thing I want to hit on is, like, I love this running theme that's been going on for a while. Mainly, I want to say, probably just kind of phase 3 onward, and maybe like a dash of phase 2. I just love that this running theme of these big events in the 90s era Marvel and 90s era MCU. Like, for, of course, 91, the year, Tony Stark's parents were killed by the Winter Soldier, and 92, it's when T'Challa's the whole thing with Killmonger happened. Like all these.
95 is Captain Marvel, and then this flashback.
Yep. Concurrently, we got both of our female heroes kind of having big moments in the 90s.
Yeah, I think part of it's that, like, for some of the characters, they're all relatively in their early to mid 30s. So I guess
the numbers, like the age and everything, does absolutely line up. Well, that's why we're in the 90s. I just love kind of the runner of, like, it's just kind of funny that the 90s, when all the really major stuff happened, the MCU, like all the big secret and big major traumatizing events. I don't know, I love it.
Yeah, no. I think also it helps. Like, I think it might be a bit of a calculated move on Marvel's part, because, like, there's probably a good chunk of, like, the people watch movies that grew up in the 90s and, like, had memories of it. So that's kind of a bit of a nostalgia play,
Yeah. So yeah, the opening of the movie with the flashback, to me, it's like basically I don't know if you ever saw this show. Did you ever see The Americans?
No, like, but my parents did, and they're huge fans of that show.
Yeah,
and I know.
Yeah, I like The Americans, mainly because I love Matthew Rhys in that. I watch The Americans so I get ready for him in A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, the Tom Hanks, Mr. Rogers movie.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the point being, this opening very much reminded me of The Americans, where essentially, we're infiltrating suburbia for a mission here, and I thought it was a great reveal that, you don't exactly know what's going on at the top here with Natasha's past, because I'm going into expecting her, like, again, as a kid in the Red Room, but suburbia. Before I realized it, oh shit, she's on assignment this early on. Okay, I thought it was like gonna be like a straightforward, like, her in like her teen years or something when she graduates that thing. But no,
Hmm.
it's like, okay, there was a little going on missions as a kid. I mean, it makes sense, and I like that kind of almost like Destiny. She's put in the crosshairs of Shield, which will eventually kind of set her on the straight and narrow with this opening. So kind of some fun stuff there in our setup.
It's also a really cool choice for um, to have both Natasha and Yelena be sort of adoptive sisters, and it's a unique take on the relationship because in the comics, like Yelena is just sort of a random person that takes up Black Widow's identity, and she she's sort of a villain or enemy towards Natasha, and in this it's being retooled as sort of adopted sisters with Natasha being sort of more in the known and being more wise to like what this situation actually is. And Yelena, through this like flashback, she really loses her, sense of innocence, and then it's just put on the path that like Natasha was already on, at such a young age.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing I'm always going to remember, I was really excited going to the movie with the whole idea of like we're doing, we're ushering in the next generation of Black Widow with Elena, because that's usually how it goes. And we have multiple Black Widows, and what I really like about it is that it takes me back to the Thunderbolts era with her, where she had this crossover with Deadpool. Always stuck me. I always loved. There was the Daniel Way Deadpool run, and basically he was trying to strike back at Norman Osborn. Norman Osborn got ticked off, so we brought in the Thunderbolts, which included her, and Deadpool had a crush on Black Widow. And it was always kind of because of that. I was like, oh yeah, I know that character. As always when they're doing the advertising, oh, we're doing her. That's cool. Of course, now we have Deadpool in the MCU, so I doubt we're going to do any of that stuff. But it's just kind of fun. Like, look how far we've come. They're both in the same universe now.
It's also a bit meta considering that like Ryan Reynolds
Mhm.
was actually married to Scarlett Johansson
I know, it's
for 2 years.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really lucked out too, because he's really kind of sheepish about working with her, which thankfully won't have to. Well, in his case, thankfully, because he won't have to do that because she's dead in the universe,
Yeah.
so she doesn't worry about that. He dodged the bullet on that one.
Well, I guess it'll be tough to get Brad Pitt for an MCU role.
Yep. Well, yeah. Well, we had him in Deadpool 2, and he's also dead. So yeah, it all works out. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I really is the way I like the cinematography, especially the emphasis on the fireflies. Like the way the openings of this movie went and the credits, it wasn't like a very typical Marvel movie where you have like a big flashback moment and then you have like the fanfare and then the big logo and then like several years later like the establishment shot. It was very this flashback took its time to really like let you breathe in and sort of feel this sort of sense of like normalcy, and that's just sort of taken away as soon as you felt it.
Yeah, some of the hit too is that it's been a long time since we've gotten kind of proper credits in an MCU movie, like an opening title
Yeah,
sequence. This
yeah.
is, this is pretty significant, and again, it's very tonal. It felt very very appropriate. Like, if we're going to do it, we're going to make it count. And also, just, I mean, it kind of fits with the power of how we capped off the '95 stuff, where we had that. I just love the mix of humanity of a family within the action, where it's like, hey, we got fruit roll-ups in the car, and they're putting on American pies. They're, as they're driving and everything, and just like the heartbreak after that tense plane takeoff, and like the subtle, like we keep building upon things. Where, okay, Dad's a super soldier; he can just flip the, he can flip this, so we can go on the plane, and young Natasha can steer a plane on the fly. She's very
Yeah.
adaptable. And just separate. At the end of the day, ultimately, I think the big point that they hit is that the family is separated by truth. And of course, the ultimate truth is that they're not really a family, which is kind of what separates them, and that they're spies. And yeah, but they're spies, but they're going to get through this. It's that they're like Redguard. Alexei has no compunction that my girls are the toughest, and like they're the strongest, and they're going to be fine. Like, nothing's going to take them down, even though the family's separate. He has a strong belief in family, despite his other prerogatives, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, let's fast forward 21 years. What say you? Let's talk Natasha the Fugitive, kind of our post Civil War kind of events.
It was a good sequence. I really have a lot of questions in regards to how General Ross looked. Like he looked so like sickly and anemic, and and this couldn't have been too long. Like after he was in Civil War, where he just looked like regular William Hurt with like the hair and the mustache, and I kind of wonder if that's like setting a stage to the red like maybe a Red Hulk thing where he's taking some level of like gamma radiation, whatever. Like he need, and that was the thing that kept him alive after his double or triple bypass or whatever. And he has to take like doses because the way he looked in this movie, he looked like at death's door.
Well, one, that's an excellent point, and I do love. We did call that out in the movie about like a second triple bypass, and he's burning the count both ends. I don't know how intentional that is. I don't know because it's been a number of years. Maybe William Hurt's just not looking that good. I mean, I love your idea though. I love the idea that maybe like how does a guy survive two triple bypasses? That it's all that stress he's putting on himself. And again, we do have a She-Hulk show coming up, and again, we are kind of doing these backdoor things with the Thunderbolts. And one of the iterations of the Thunderbolts, very memorably, had Thunderbolt Ross involved. So it would. Whether we're doing Dark Avengers or not, because I think my assumption is like we go somewhat more the Dark Avengers route. We're gonna have Abomination as our Hulk figure, but again, sometimes the obvious answer is under our noses. Yeah, why couldn't it be Ross? I mean, we've been skirting around that line, but it's the question of do we do a Hulk with a mustache or not? Because it's always weird to me how every time he hulks out, he doesn't have a mustache.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the whole mystery back then, but yeah.
I think like if we get the Thunderbolts, it'll be essentially like a Dark Avengers. There'll be the Thunderbolts name, and yeah, I think I see. The Red Hulk thing. Maybe they're just gonna. I think there's gonna be further seeds planted in the She-Hulk show.
I agree. Let me put it this way: if we're ever going to do a Red Hulk, we're going to intimate it like he'll appear in the She-Hulk show. If he doesn't, I don't think we're getting Red Hulk. At least not for a long while. Which I would like question: why wait so long? I mean, look at William Hurt. I think we should do it sooner rather than later. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there was a lot of speculation about Downey. A lot of crazy stuff's been going on with Downey Jr. lately. I don't want to belabor things too much, but it's sort of this thing where a lot of people, way back when it was announced, like, hey, we're gonna have like a Downey Jr. cameo here, and what I was purely expecting was like pulling the scene from Civil War, maybe a deleted scene from Civil War, where it was going to be like him saying something to her before before he basically gave her the heads up that Ross is coming for you, and that's how we're going to kind of link things up. That's how I thought we were going to go. But yeah, I'm getting a sense that if that was the plan or not, Downey Jr. kind of he's been a little expensive lately. I don't know. Maybe that had anything to do with it or not. What if has kind of brought about some questions, but. Either way, I'm saying that's kind of where I was expecting to kind of start off with things, but Ross was an appropriate start to it. We know he's coming after her, and we see, okay, no one's going to catch the Black Widow so easily. I mean, look at her; she pulled the Winter Soldier move that Cap did. She ditched the costume with the tracker in it. Really clever stuff. Yeah. So after a crafty escape, we see she's trying to lay low, thanks to her I believe her ex-Shield buddy, Rick Mason, who is, as Digi said earlier, the guy underneath the Spoilercast. That guy.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Rick Mason?
I mean, he's fine. Like he's just there. Like he has like a few like lines to sort of like bounce off between Nat and then Natasha, Yelena. But I kind of agree, not fully with Tiki's point, but I can see it's like this character could have been anyone. And really, I mean, if you wanted to sort of make this movie, I don't know if efficient or economical is the right term, but you really maybe to show how like good of a spy or how good Natasha is when she's on the run, like she gets all those things on her own through like deceit, through manipulation, all that stuff. But the way it was, where she had just like someone who's a contractor who has those connections, like it didn't break the movie for me, but it was just there. It was fine.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of the Albuquerque verse, the Breaking Bads and the Better Call Sauls, and in that universe, they have like a guy who knows a guy who's going to get you these things. So I absolutely kind of like he didn't make much of an impression, but it's just the idea of like, you have a guy who's essentially like a disappear or his acquisitions, for fugitives, and that's kind of his bread and butter as a business. So, I mean, it makes sense to me that she would be able to. You should be able to kind of have a contact like this who probably, when Shield fell, that's when he went off the grid. Perhaps who knows?
I wouldn't be surprised, like considering this character and sort of what he can do, if he sort of how like Turk Barrett in the Marvel and the Netflix stuff, he showed up. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he showed up in like other films or other shows that have like a more spy, espionage, geopolitical thing. Like he would be a natural fit for like Armor Wars.
Yeah, Armor Wars, or I mean, maybe even Moon Knight, possibly, but Armor Wars for sure.
Yeah. And I think considering all the characters save Natasha are still alive, at least as far as we know, post Endgame, I could see them, show. Maybe there could be a show focused on Yelena, and then you can have more development for Red Guardian, Melina, and even Rick Mason. And so I think this, like, why we saw them, this one movie that likely won't have any follow-ups, since this is the last, hurrah for Black Widow. Yeah. I don't think those characters won't, not show up in other things.
It's a good point. Something I want to hit real quick before we kind of talk more about Elena is I love the intimate glimpse at Black of Natasha at night, just like watching the Bond movies and the trailers, kind of hunkering down. It's a very kind of
which Bond movie she's watching?
Oh, is it Moonraker? Is that right?
Yeah, it was Moonraker, and I didn't notice that. Like, I watched a review of this movie from a guy I follow, and he pointed out how there's some like similarities in Moonraker, at least in terms of the action scenes, and also like the big villain bases up in the skies, and Moonraker's in space, and in this it's like basically in the clouds. So
cool.
Yeah.
All right, so what I do this is not like one of my major gripes. Something that does occur to me in the theater, which usually does not happen on the first watch for me. So it did kind of signal me. How does Natasha? Because of course our big plot point is discovered by her in the she's basically Rick Mason. He just says, "Oh yeah, there's a box of stuff that was left by the previous tenant from the Budapest location. Just." Dispose of it, if you will. And how does she not go through that stuff before she just drives off to get rid of it? Like, how does she not open the box? Oh, there are vials in here. It's a message from my sister. How does she not? I don't understand. That kind of stuck out to me.
Nat is like anyone else that has his packages. You just they're there. You have some errands to do, and you'll get to them. But they're not. The priority is that you have the mail, and as long as you don't lose it, you don't have to open them immediately.
All right.
No, that's a good point. I think that's sort of, the movie's trying to have like Natasha find those things out at the same time as the audience. So I guess that's why, she didn't open. That's why it wasn't written for her to open the packages and, show this.
Yeah, she opens it. We don't have the Taskmaster fight. We don't have all the dramatic kind of framing of events.
Honestly, you could have had Taskmaster show up at the where she was staying at the trailer, and then maybe Rick would have been trying to save her, but he gets knocked out, and then you would still have the fight, would have been not on a bridge, but just in an open field.
Well, I think the problem is she wouldn't have anywhere to go if it were an open field. I think that's why it has to be on the bridge. That's a guess, because again, the idea and basically what we show in this movie, Taskmaster, is quite unstoppable, almost Winter Soldier-esque in many places.
Yeah.
So she would have no place to go if it were an open field. I mean, that's my assumption there. We have a few comments here. Executive says that was a James Bond movie. Yes, it was. That was Moonraker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of wonder if Natasha has has watched all the James Bond movies and has particular preferences in terms of Bond actor or Bond film.
Well, we know she likes hold on a second. We know she likes war games. So we know she watches movies. And that was the thing I've always liked about Black Widow, I was terrified we were going to kind of circumvent in Avengers, where
Mhm.
I was always, here's the thing, just talking about getting in the whole, the female kind of superhero aspect of it all, is that way back when Avengers came out, my fear with Black Widow was, oh god, we're going to do that TV thing where we can't have strong women be people. We have to have them just be like, I'm
No
going to look down on
nonsense.
anyone who makes jokes and has
Okay.
relationships, and like, oh, you have a relationship, I could never do that. Like that's like Catherine Willis from CSI, good character, but always looking down at everyone, scoffing, like, really, Catherine, you don't do anything on the weekends, you don't have any fun, like, ever.
Like, all the rom-coms she's been in.
Yeah.
That's a great observation. That's a good point. I didn't think of that. And I think I think part of like why, Black Widow just has a sense of personality and like a dry, sarcastic sense of humor. Part of that's probably is like Joss Whedon just has that kind of voice for a lot of
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah.
But I think like had Black Widow been, written by a lesser writer or someone that just went for the stereotypes, I think Black would have been less memorable. And I think that would have probably prompted people to be like, oh, why can't we just get, because there's already complaints about like Hawkeye being such a bland character in the first Avengers. And so if both Hawkeye and Black Widow were memorable, I think that would have made people think like, well, you put those two characters in instead of Ant-Man and the Wasp, and we should have had Ant-Man and the Wasp. So I think Black Widow being written as well, and Scarlett Johansson like having great chemistry and sort of like a lot of charisma in her performance helped make that character more memorable, more long lasting than she would typically be in other iterations.
Yeah. So speaking of the good old times with Natasha and Clint, let's talk some Budapest reunions. Just going to Budapest again. So I'm going to jump forward a bit here. Okay. Let me ask this. So I have a missed opportunity with this movie. I think one of the big problems I have with the movie is the fact that we go to Budapest, and look, yes, I had an expectation of maybe we could do some cool stuff given that we're going to Budapest, given how much we built it up in the MCU. But just even taking it just in the context of our story, and just even though like I would have pitched like a whole movie detailing the Budapest affair for Black Widow. That's back then. If we were talking, what do you want to do for a Black Widow? Let's do the whole Budapest thing. Let's make that the movie. But accepting the story that we have and that we're just going to address what happened to Budapest, I think it was a very big mistake to just talk about Budapest, the reference from Avengers, versus like a quick flashback with Hawkeye. I think it was a mistake not to show that story. What do you think?
I'd be surprised if there was a version of the script where there was like an extended Budapest flashback sequence.
Mm-hmm.
And it was maybe cut for time, budget, or like they wanted to get Renner, but Renner wasn't free. So ultimately, like I think like maybe like I wouldn't be surprised if there was a plan to have more stuff with Budapest in the past, but for whatever reason they just didn't have the time or budget, or they couldn't get Jeremy Renner to like show up for a few days of filming. So I mean it does kind of suck, but I also think like maybe. Because like from what's described and what's implied, like it was a very like intense like firefight, gunfight, a lot of action going on, and maybe the concern is that like all right, we kind of have like set action sequences. We have the Taskmaster initial fight in the bridge, then we have the action sequence where Taskmaster's chasing Elena and Nat, then the action sequence at the prison, and then the action sequence in the Red Room. And maybe having Budapest where it's like a very action heavy story, maybe it would have been too much.
I mean, maybe. I mean, here's where it just fundamentally, very simply, it's that in story form, it doesn't, just for point of comparison here, in just telling the story, it doesn't have the power of like when she talked about her encounter with the Winter Soldier that one time. That scene, you can get away with that in storytelling because it was a very compelling story. It built up the mystery and everything. But here it's like, no, we need information. And the problem with Budapest is now we retroactively, in a sense, I'm not saying it's too incongruous, but I'm just saying like now we've kind of taken some of the mystique out of it. It's the old trap of like sometimes less is more. In this case, if we're just going to tell that story, it's like, well, now it's kind of a failed mission. and it's and now like it's emotionally complicated given like how like a Ruckus and a Pharaoh was like Budapest, right? You and I remember Budapest very differently. It's like we kind of taken
Yeah.
some of the, so we kind of mess with the context a bit, and it's just like I don't know. I just feel like it would have maybe given the story a little bit more power, and it also would have worked in that whole Dreykov's daughter aspect maybe a little better with the red on the ledge. Like this is a big event, it's the origin of
Yeah.
why she's called Dreykov's daughter and all that sort of stuff. I don't know.
Honestly, like I think this move, like I think had this movie not been like thematically about like a found family, with Red Guardian and all that stuff, and have been more pared down. I think we could have seen a version of this Black Widow movie where instead of the flashback sequence being like 1995, you had the flashback sequence be the Budapest thing. And then, after Civil War, her past is literally haunting her. And she's like alone or has very few people to support her. And so be a much more like, scaled down movie that's, more of like a revenge movie, but our protagonist is the person that's being hunted for revenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Florence. Pew pew. Sorry, it's kind of a dumb Black Widow joke. All right, but so we reunite with the sisters with Florence Pugh doing an excellent job as Elena. I think Florence Pugh and David Harbour were really like nothing against Scarlett Johansson. She was also really good in the movie. I think the cast overall did an excellent job in the material, but I feel like Florence Pugh is very much a standout of the film. She brought a lot of humanity, a lot of fun to the role, and one of the cool things about the movie, she brought kind of a meta context to it, where like she's calling out the mistakes of Black Widow and like Iron Man 2, which is really funny.
I think out of anyone in the movie, like Florence Pugh had to bring her A game because she's going to be the new Black Widow.
Yeah.
And so if she didn't work, if she didn't, make people interested in her character, then that would have been a really big fail on the movie's part. But the fact that she worked so well and she has a great dynamic with Scarlett Johansson, I think that's a good sign for when she shows up in other things, or if she has like her own movie or maybe her own Disney Plus show, whatever project that Marvel thinks would be best for this character. Like the character's well written and the character's well acted, and so that's a good combo for this character to have longevity. And now that we're sort of in a space to develop more female superheroines, there's now a much more greater push to give characters like Yelena like more front stage presence and more opportunity for her to have her own adventures.
Yeah. So again, the sisters, of course, after their inaugural fight, it's kind of a smart move because they're kind of. I love it's not just for the fact that we don't like each other. It's mainly for the fact of we're in a business where we can't trust each other, and also Elena with the whole red dust subplot is like, are you controlled? Are you controlled? So the kid.
Like Elena it's just growing up. She didn't have a family really, but she was made to believe that she had a family. And so that reveal, like I think that's like the tension is not simple like, oh, we're just siblings and so we always had to fight each other. It's more like Yelena had this faith and this love for this family that upon this reveal that it's just a spy family, like it sets it puts a lot of tension between both Nat and Elena, because Nat, we always sort of value, or we think it's cool of how like she can manipulate people and all that stuff. But in this particular instance, you can see sort of the harmful effects and the more, really dehumanizing aspect of being manipulated and being, used as a tool.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm iffy on the way we get there with her at the top, though, with the red dust, because I'm not saying it's. This is what I'm talking about. Kind of it's a very straightforward plot. By the same token, maybe a little too simple and straightforward, because the red dust. I mean, I think it's okay, and I think it plays all right. It just feels like a shortcut. It's in that like the idea that, okay, so we have to explain Nat was the last pre-chemical engineered Black Widows, and she was just indoctrinated into it, where Now we chemically control them, and basically, I mean, it makes sense that they would expedite the breaking their wills for the operatives in like an enterprising, like it's growing, it's become something so massive they would have to kind of shorthand that if they're going to make it into like a profitable sort of thing, right?
Yeah, I think also another point is that like something Natasha and Melina have in common is that they have a natural gift or instinct for this kind of work, this kind of assassination, manipulation, like a lot of the dark, like cloak and dagger stuff of espionage. And that for other people that are just not naturally like that, had that kind of disposition, like the chemical stuff is needed to sort of put them in that direction.
Yeah, it's sort of like it kind of gives them the boost after the whole hysterectomy thing, where the idea like the more sadistic days of the Black Widow program, we take it out so when they can't have children. Like if essentially we take as much humanity as we can in that, like you can't think of yourself having children, ergo you don't see children as people if you were tasked to take them out or something along those lines. So kind of again, sort of like a more economic version of we don't have time. We don't have time to ruin people's lives. Like a stretch of weeks. We got to do it instantaneously. Chemicals, man, it's the future. So speaking of ruined lives, let's tease up more of the aesthetic, and we'll talk about the reveal later. I want to talk about you mentioned the fight choreography is pretty cool in this, right? And we do that by way of Taskmaster. So we have like some great visually looks great. The action I think was executed great. Taskmaster very imposing, got a bit of that Winter Soldier quality, and I love the idea of Taskmaster as the Red Room's response to the unruly Black Widows. I love that as a setup for Taskmaster.
In light of the reveal of it being Draco's daughter, it's how this guy just views every woman, just like a means to end. Even his own daughter is not like safe from this like mindset.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I'm not crazy about the reveal of Taskmaster. I'll get into that a little later. But I mean, it definitely speaks to the ruthlessness of Dreykov. No question they turned his daughter into this. But yeah. Anyway, so let's see. So point being, Taskmaster is a problem because, again, classic Taskmaster in regards of like the photographic reflex memory, thanks to the Civil War footage, which is a great idea. Has the moves of Cap, Hawkeye, Winter Soldier, Black Panther, you name it. With shields, arrows, claws, swords.
The footage that was shown in front of Taskmaster is different than the trailer, the first trailer for this movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Trailer, I think, or whatever trailer like shows Taskmaster and she viewing the footage. I think the trailer shows the footage from Black Widow taking on the security guards, Iron Man 2 in the trailer. And I think the second or third trailer, or whatever, changes to like the Civil War footage.
Huh. I did not. No, I didn't know that. That's cool. I was kind of on. Basically, after the initial Black Widow trailer, I was kind of on lockdown, and then unfortunately, the world went into lockdown. Ergo, I didn't. I could have watched those trailers, but I was like, I want to see the movie. I don't want to see those trailers. I want too much footage getting in my mind on this one. But then it was like a 2-year wait, so that's how that worked. Really, what felt like 2 years, I guess. I don't know. All right, so let's talk. So again, we have a problem with Taskmaster. Ergo, we need a solution. So we got to break out Papa. In this case, Red Guardian. We're in Act 2. Let's. How do you feel about Red Guardian on the whole?
Red Guardian is an interesting character. I remember one critique that was presented in a review that I watched for this movie is that like David Harbour does a good job in the flashback of being this like spy who's trying to pretend to be this good dad and this sort of has been washed up person, and the critique was like there's not an effort to like connect the two, and I was kind of confused of why Red Guardian was in jail. Like, was he just sort of tossed aside because like Dreykov didn't have any use for him, or like did he betray his country? Or I was kind of confused like why wasn't that Red Guardian was in jail in the first place?
I think the assumption is Dreykov, like, kind of like abandoned. He was pretty peeved at Dreykov, so I think it was like a throwaway line on the plane about Dreykov betraying him. I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
Mhm.
Yeah, but Red Guardian was a big hook for me with the movie. I mean, I was already sold. I'm like, oh yeah, sure, Blackwood, I'm going to see that movie and the whole Elena thing. That's really cool. But Red Guardian is a huge because I'm a sucker for the MCU cap, and I love the idea of okay, we're adapting basically the Soviet Captain America idea, and we're bringing it in here, and we're giving it a really good actor in David Harbour, and it was just this. It's a cool concept already, and I love that we kind of made it funny and with like a true heart, albeit the unconventional approach to his parenting style, which that I thought that was the really grounding element of this character, where despite like the Red Guardian thing already, like the idea that he's in prison and he gets fan mail and he gets like action figures of the Red Guardian, I think that's awesome already.
Yeah, I remember I was watching this video, and the comment he makes about him finding Cap and like it being impossible.
Yeah, because Cap was frozen in the '80s in this.
No, so a theory that someone mentioned. I was watching a video from New Rockstar's YouTube channel, and someone mentioned that maybe Red Guardian fought Cap when he's trying to put the Infinity Stones back.
Ah, well, that's interesting, but I'm trying to think of how he would ever encounter him within those the very precise destinations of those stones. That's the thing.
No, that's a good point. I mean, it really, considering the multiverse stuff, it could be like a Cap from another universe, or really, another thing that might be, sort of sad when you think about it, is that maybe someone would, the Russian government manipulated someone to be like to dress up like Captain America and then get into a fight with Alexei, and just as for propaganda purposes, and that just sort of feeds into like Red Guardian believing he's like really that like impressive a superhero, where in reality it's just all like smokes and mirrors.
It's all based on like I tell you, that's a way better theory than I had. My theory was just really simple. It was that basically I imagine Red Guardian, because it is in the comic. I forget if he killed him or not in the book, but in the original Winter Soldier comic, Winter Soldier went up against Red Guardian. My thought just simply is that logically these two guys could have been in operation at the same time, and perhaps it's like a half truth that he fought someone like Captain America who worked with Captain America. With the Winter Soldier, but Captain America has a better kind of like an appeal there. So, but I mean, your idea I think it sounds a lot cooler though. I like your idea.
I wonder, like the Winter Guard, like the Russian superhero team that has like Red Guardian, Ursa Major, the bear, like a humanoid bear or like a walking bear, Russian bear, or whatever. I kind of wonder, like, if the MCU would be willing to do something like that, like have superhero teams from other different nations.
Yeah, that's a great point. Here's the thing. If we ever there's been some murmurs about Hugh Jackman in the MCU lately, and what I'd love them to do is like a Hulk versus Wolverine movie, and if we did that, we could maybe do Alpha Flight. So that's an example, like them doing one of the off-brand superhero teams. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it could be possible.
No, I know like the new iteration of Agents of Atlas is basically like all the Asian superheroes, whether old or new. So it could, and I know like in Jason Aaron's run, like he's sort of trying to develop this overarching theme of like different nation states having superheroes as like the next WMDs or whatever. And honestly, I wouldn't put it past like Marvel to have like the Thunderbolts be like the Avengers that answer to the American government, and then you have like superhero teams pop up in different like countries in Europe and Asia as like a response, and like superheroes are now like the new like nuclear
Deterrents. They're the new deterrents. Yeah.
and sort of ties back, and it ties back to like stuff from the Ultimates, which makes sense because we derive so much from the Ultimates, like especially in the first Avengers movie, both aesthetically and certain themes. So it wouldn't be it would make a lot of sense, and also with the MCU being such a global brand, the amount of merchandising with like all the different superheroes with like from different countries and all that stuff.
I think that's a good line of thinking. I think that's certainly again. I think we got to baby step it with something like maybe like an Alpha Flight or something. But I think ultimately we could go there, and it makes sense, especially right now in Phase 4, where right now the idea of we're kind of unofficially the Avengers are unofficially disbanded. They're disassembled right now.
Well, there's also Captain Britain and MI13. So like
now we said, and back in the day for the folks we had Union Jack. Well, sorry, wait, was it Union Jack or Captain? I think it was Union Jack. Anyway, so we set up like the British Captain America in the first Avenger with one of the guys on the Howling Commandos team. So it's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm sorry. Let me circle back to Red Guardian here. So again, as I said, again, like, you have this like Russian circus bear of a super soldier in Red Guardian. That yes, he's overweight, but I love the weight that has no bearing on his abilities. Like he's arm wrestling everybody. He's gloating about Captain America. I love that he's obsessed like this one-sided rivalry with Cap. And I love like, did he ever mention me? Did he ever say anything about me? He's so.
We're contemporaries in geopolitics. It's like
I love it.
Yeah, I think this is. I think like Alexi's definitely like a person that like definitely consumed a lot of like propaganda that have warring U.S. and USSR, and so I think Alexi views Captain like obviously he's aware that the Cold War is over, but like he's definitely raised in that kind of atmosphere where it's just like America and Russia are like the two people that define the conflict of the world.
Yeah, and it's just great that he's reveled in being an icon and in his own eyes a superhero. And I just love that we gave him that, and he just really loves it. You can feel it on him, and that's the thing. I think at his core, Red Guardian. This kind of bridges us into the next part. Is that Red Guardian at his core, he is very effusive with his emotions. This is a guy who loves life. He loves what he does. He loves being of use and of service, but also he feels like a tremendous the Cell is that emotionally, as goofy as he is filled with genuine pride and love for his family, particularly his daughters, who are like the best killers in human history. And that there's so much red on your ledgers. Without realizing this is what. Yeah, come on, man. You learn nothing from Avengers. Come on, he's trying to get away from that red on her ledger. Come on.
It's interesting that that's such an interesting observation because that really much explains like why he was so glad to be done with the family spy thing, because ultimately Alexi is a soldier and a superhero, and those kind of like roles are very public facing. And I think Alexi, like, at his heart, he's a bit of a glory hound.
Yeah.
So, and, places where, he has to be in the background, he has to sort of fit in. That's just not who he is. And he just does it just to, like, as a means to an end. Whereas, which is, I think, is an interesting, like, gender, distinction. Whereas, like, the females are more okay with being sort of the spies and being the shadows and doing more, low-key stuff.
It's kind of like we want what we can't have. And the Black Widows, again, per that program, they're not allowed to have the traditional family. They can't have children. Ergo, they want that slice of normalcy. They want what they can't have. And in Ray Guardian's case, again, when he's forced in normal life, he wants what he can't have. He wants the glory days. He wants to be Captain America, where again he can be it on his own terms, but not really be that guy.
Yeah.
So the family dinner, I think, is, for me, the standout scene and element of the film. I think truly it's the beating heart of the film. I think it's like one of the go-to best scene of the film. It's smart money. It's going to kick the crap out of whatever the Eternals does with their family dinner scene. I'm just going to say that now.
I don't know. I don't want to make that kind of bet because I have no idea what that movie's going to look like. But I think what's really it was really a good highlight for all four actors.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of which, Rachel Weisz, of course, I always loved her. My favorite Rachel Weisz performance was in Runaway Jury. She played the girl, kind of the girlfriend in the movie who was basically kind of helping plot against Gene Hackman's character. She was great in that movie. Anyway, she did an excellent job as the mother phase, as Melina. I thought, she was good. I just the family just came alive so well at that dinner table, right?
Yeah, no, it's sort of even though they pretended to be a family, it's sort of that Kurt Vonnegut quote is that be careful where you pretend to be because you're likely or going to be where you pretend to be.
Yeah.
So, and pretending to be this family, like they did become a family to a certain extent. That's the thing that this movie sort of hits upon is that the relationships you choose to get in to be a part of, even if you have ulterior motives, like you can't help but not develop feelings to humanity, and that's just sort of the whole point is to not run away or just to abuse those relationships, but to embrace them, and that just makes you a better person. So that's sort of the lesson that I think Nat learns throughout this movie, and that makes her decision to come back to the Avengers.
Yeah, like everyone at that table has a very interesting viewpoint on the matter of family, and that Melina seems to be the one who adjusted most into her role, just feeling comfortable. Like, she controls pigs in her off time. She too is lonely. She's still thinking of a family. It's a joke about, oh, this pig is named Alexi because it reminds her of him. But by the same token, it's like she's walking that balance of this is my freedom, but also I am under Dreykov's control.
Yeah.
I'm doing his dirty work, but also, this is my quiet life. It's kind of the line that she walks. And you have you have Elena, who's just purely that half of her life up to that point. She was a 6-year-old when this happened, so that mission was 3 years. Like, as much as her cognitive life of just being able to recall things as a little girl, that was her whole life. That family union. That's why it was most real for her. And Alexei was like, he played the role, and he liked the people he was working. He loved his coworkers and saw them as family versus falling for the role. So he was most aware of the situation, but he loved it all the same in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's interesting is that like Yelena definitely takes a little bit from her father in terms of her being more expressive emotionally.
Yeah.
Whereas like Natasha takes a lot from her mother in terms of being more reserved and more like
compartmentalized.
Yeah. It's interesting. That scene, I think I kind of wish there was a bit of a confrontation from either Nat or even Yelena about the fact that Melina was complicit in making this chemical process that took away the free will and autonomy of a lot of young girls that were runaways or victims of human trafficking or slavery. And like that's like there's a bit of regret, but it's not like a strong like I feel like this scene was missing was it's missing the moment in Captain America the Winter Soldier where Steve confronts Nick Fury on the fact that like his kind of thinking, the way he runs things enabled Hydra to rise and take over and further its agenda.
I think you're right, but the only difference there to me is that Melina doesn't really have a choice. She's not the head honcho like Nick Fury was. You can only give her so much buck, in return, because she's a cog in the machine. She's told to do this, and she too has been indoctrinated like Natalie was.
Mm-hmm.
Like Natasha was. Sorry, I'm going with the whole Natalie Rushman thing for some reason. A lot of identities over the years, kids. Yeah, but yeah, it's to your point though. I do with the whole like the mimic, kind of them kind of identifying with a parent. I love it just with the relationships too. I love one that Alexei and Melina, they really do care for each other. It's like the whole the gag too, like the outfit still fits. The suit still fits. You got fat, but still good.
It's funny like Natasha's grossed out by like Melina thinking Alexei's still attractive.
Yeah, and I thought that was so cute. And again, the whole family dinner setting, she's like serving them food, very motherly, and just the fact of like it's just grossed out. The parents are getting it on, or like thinking about it. And Elena's just like, hey, I'm just enjoying the family time here. Don't look at me like that. Come on.
Yeah.
And the fact that one thing is, when the argument kind of breaks out, basically Natalie being very all about business, being very direct, and basically calling out again the truth, which is, no, we are not family. But again, that brings up the argument of like, well, no, we kind of were a family though, which is her arc of having to kind of come to grips with her sister is right, it's an unconventional family, which again I know we're kind of circling this as we kind of said a couple times before. But again, this brings her to the Avengers kind of realization of like, no, that is also my family. I got to bring them back together. So
Yeah.
all of this tracks really nicely.
No, MCU like has a really likes, the theme of a found family, of people coming together and being a familiar unit.
Certainly. I mean, again, look at Cap and Bucky. They're the brothers. It's a beautiful arc.
Guardians, the Avengers to a certain degree. Like family is a very strong. I think why family is such a big theme in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, may not to the degree of say the Fast and the Furious, but I think part of it's like, for superheroes, it's about the growth and character development, and for a lot of heroes and for a lot of characters, their growth and development is impacted by what they grew up under and whether to still retain the lessons they learned from their familiar figures or to grow out of those influences.
Yeah. It's all about the growth.
Yeah.
So again, like Alexei again, he's trying to pep talk Elena. He fails miserably till the American Pie callback, which is great. It's really sweet.
Yeah.
And Melina gives Natasha some big closure that she's been looking for a while. That Dreykov bought her from her mother and then killed her mother. So that really motivates Natasha for the big plan in Act 3. Speaking of a plan, again, so we have the betrayal that happens where, again, Melina was basically stalling with the family dinner, which, again, it feels like a very kind of classic Black Widow move, which, again, is not exactly what it seems to be, which is very clever. And I'll admit, I'm not tranking, again, this is like more of a runtime thing. I think we just tranked Red Guard instead of having a fight just because, we got to get from point A to point B. But it would have been cool, though, seeing Red Guardian spring into action. Maybe he had a shield that we didn't see. Who knows?
Maybe do some moves that mimic some moves from Cap, or maybe have I think because I feel like it would have been a cool opportunity to have his fighting style be different, because Cap is sort of like an agile MMA fighter, whereas I feel like Lexi, he's not as agile as Cap, but I think you can have him be more of a heavyweight boxer.
Yeah, like kind of like an old school boxer. The man's like a tank, practically. Something like that.
Yeah.
All right, so we've been talking about Dreykov a lot. So let's talk about the big confrontations, kind of Dreykov on the whole here. So
Dreykov, played by Ray Winstone.
Yes.
Ray Winstone cannot. It's very hard for him to do an accent beyond his Cockney accent. I remember watching him in The Departed, and it's like, man, this guy's not doing at all a good job in doing a Boston accent. I mean, here it's slightly better, but I can still hear his Cockney accent come through sometimes, and I just don't know if it's that was just that's a bit of a nitpick on my part. His performance is fine for what he's supposed to do, but yeah, that accent. Clearly Florence Pugh and Rachel Weisz as Melina have the best handle of the Russian accent. It's just funny that everyone except the main character speaks in a Russian accent.
Yeah. Always so ironic just how that worked out in the greater MCU. I'm Russian. Really, are you Russian though? But they didn't take the cheap shot. I can respect that. So, the big confrontation with Dreykov. So, we did the classic Black Widow move of manipulating the situation and the ego of the bad guy, basically in the whole thank you for your compliance. The old Loki chestnut, which is brilliant, by the way.
Yeah.
Dreykov himself. So let me talk about this. Is a big kind of component of the movie where I think the parallels. There's a big Me Too component to this film that is truly I don't like dragging that into it when it doesn't apply, but here I think it absolutely applies, and I think they did a really good job with it compared to other things that try to tackle kind of the relevant issues at hand and stuff like that. I think I hope I'm not talking out of school here, but it just feels like the parallels are very apparent, and I think through this Dreykov character we we hit it just right. Where this is a guy who he's scarily smart, and he's a scarily smart, creepy character in how he controls women. From girlhood, we set up at the top. There's this all creepy, like touching Natasha's face and everything when she's a girl, and he like had eyes on her, and just basically. He's done so much damage to so many young women, and I think that's what I'm saying. I think you can kind of see kind of the pyramid effect of we're making him as like kind of creepy and cringy as possible. Like this guy's just kind of
he's like a sleazy Hollywood producer.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, did you get that?
I didn't get that component. I mean, now I can see where it's coming from. I just think he's sort of like, I mean, he just, the way his characters are presented, it's the old, sleazy, corrupt Russian gangster.
Any way you slice it, he's a scumbag. And I like that. That comes across any way you slice it. That's what's important.
I remember in regards to, I want to talk about the display with all the Black Widows, and someone counted like the rows and the columns.
Yeah.
And there's at least by this person's calculation, at least 700,000 Black Widows.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
And it's interesting that like it's not just like people and like girls in Russia; it's all over the world.
Oh yeah.
What's interesting, I think this person pointed out when they like did a freeze frame of that map, is that there's a lot of dots everywhere with the exception of Wakanda.
Oh, that's great. That's a great observation. Of course, he'd never be able to get into Wakanda. It makes sense. I love that.
Yeah. Also, it's interesting. It's also funny the Red Room is like up in the skies. It's like, you'd think Shield would somehow be able to detect like other vehicles that are at their level. Although
Shield technically defunct right now, so.
Well, I mean, no, like but beforehand, like.
Oh right. Oh yeah, no. Even then, it was still defunct after Winter Soldier. So I mean, technically, it's I don't know. It's.
No, but like beforehand, because like, I mean, whenever like.
Well, I don't think they've always had that in the air. I think it was like maybe a recent development that they have it in the air now. I don't know.
I mean, it could be a possibility that like since Hydra was secretly running Shield, like they didn't think to like concern themselves with the Red Room. Although considering Hydra and the Red Room want to secretly take over the world, how Red Room covertly and Hydra like covertly, but more in full force. It's weird that there's never any interaction. I mean, it'll probably be something that would be like elaborated on in a Disney Plus show.
Well, like, I mean, the big thing that we hit in the movie, though, is that the thing they stole at the opening, that basically was the Winter Soldier conditioning, which they basically turned into a chemical formula. So that's the idea. They basically took some of how we make a Winter Soldier so automatically compliant, we kind of made into a kind of a chemical process. That was the big takeaway. They stole from Hydra, which was Hydra by proxy of S.H.I.E.L.D. was not happy about.
Yeah. Imagine like a covert like spy games, or like a spy that's in Shield, but is secretly a Hydra agent that's going up against a Red Room agent, and just the subterfuge that happens like behind the scenes, and that I'm honestly surprised that is an idea for like an episode or something in a Disney Plus show, or whatever. Because I would not be surprised if there's some idea of like, oh, what if a Hydra agent went up against a Red Room Black Widow?
That's a cool idea for sure. Let me circle back to Dreykov though, so I can get this out. So as I was saying, what I'm saying is I think the line again, if you want to take it with maybe like a Me Too parallel or not, I kind of like that it wasn't preachy about it though. I like that it was kind of there, and it was like you can kind of see it, but you don't need it, but it's kind of there though. It's that fine line that fits the story where. He's stealing the innocence and the childhood of girls all over and controlling them. And I think the most standout scene with this guy was the pheromone failsafe, with the idea that we know Black would kick the crap out of this guy, but she can't because of just the smell. And that's why he's all face touchy and everything the whole movie. Like she can't harm him because of that built-in failsafe. And I love that it's kind of that eerily that it's kind of that eerie thing of like, why can't we hurt these powerful men sometimes? And it's like there's that fear. We're kind of paralleling it to like kind of like a fear thing of like sometimes women can't fight back for one reason or another. In this case, it's kind of literally out of control. And I love the Black Widow's move here, and that
It's also crazy. This guy's like been in the photos of like prominent leaders.
yeah,
Like he's in a photo with Bill Clinton, Condoleezza Rice, some I think like Gorbachev or some Russian leader in the late
Yeah.
80s. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
yeah, it's a yeah. Now I'm just wanting to like have a list of like real life figures that exist in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
yeah, it's a crazy list. But I mean, plus if you go into some of the Netflix stuff, there's a lot of real life call outs. So that'd be an interesting list to make.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah, I'm sorry. So I love seeing Natasha. Like she just takes all these hits and she's just mocking him like relentlessly. And of course, we know she's trying to get him to break her nose, which he's just too weak to do it. So she's got to do it herself. Like bam, like just breaks it on the table. I just love it. It was just really cathartic just seeing, punishing this sort of archetype of just like a powerful man, just getting away with a whole bunch of bad stuff. Just seeing her like find like through a lot of pain and inflictment that she took willingly, just like kicking the crap out of him. The guy who killed her mother too, by the way.
You know what's funny is that like I think back to the line that Yelena said. It's like the god of space doesn't need to take an ibuprofen after a fight. I'm just imagining with all the like with her hitting her head that hard to break her olfactory nerve, or like whatever.
Yeah, break her nose so she can't smell.
Yeah, but the 2 weeks, the 2 weeks later part, it's just her recovering and just consuming ibuprofen by like
God, yeah, she has to do like. Remember when she has to set it back though? She's got to do like the old boxer thing, like
yeah.
yeah.
I feel like she must have like a minor concussion.
No,
Like,
she's got to.
yeah, do you remember the scene where she just like falls down and hits her head like hits on like a bunch of stuff, breaking her fall?
Yep. Oh god.
I'm surprised she could stand up after
She's
that.
a fighter, that Natasha Romanoff. She fought a whole city of aliens and robots and God knows what. She's been all over the place. All right. So again, the whole plan aspect of her, like her having to plan to go up against Dreykov and steal his ring and basically bring down the Red Room was really awesome. Let me tell you something that wasn't quite awesome for me. The Taskmaster reveal did not thrill me, and it's kind of my other hang up on the movie, along with kind of like we should have seen that flashback. So I'm a fan of Taskmaster. I won't say I know every single thing about the guy, but I have an affinity for Taskmaster, particularly like the crossovers he's had with Deadpool over the years and the Gail Simone run, which had like a Taskmaster spin-off. So I know a decent amount about Taskmaster, and he's a very interesting character. I mean, dare I say he's kind of Mando-esque in that you never really, you have a name on the guy, Tony Masters, but you never really see the guy. Like rarely does he ever take off the helmet, or do we see him just kind of as a regular Joe. And that's the fact of the matter, is that you don't need a face. You don't need all so many details about the guy. So I'm saying Taskmaster is sort of like, he is kind of a blank slate in that I don't care if they change certain things about him. What I do care about though is that Rohit, it was this thing, I swear to you. I went into the movie, and with the trailers I did see, and I kept saying, especially in lieu of like the Loki show and everything, I kept saying, just please, dear God, don't let it be Rachel Weisz as Taskmaster if we unmask him. I just don't want that. For the very specific reason of, since Ant-Man and the Wasp, we keep doing the Solo reveal of like, it's a girl under the mask, and that's a reveal. It's like, I mean, okay, why is that a reveal?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't really have the character to back that up or make it a big deal. And even so, it's like, this is now the fourth time that we've done this in the MCU, where it's a girl underneath the mask. And the fact that we made it Dreykov's daughter, I mean, here's the thing: we made it Dreykov's daughter who he didn't even care about, really. He turned her into a Winter Soldier killing machine. I mean, in concept, making Black Widow's biggest regret her own Winter Soldier, I get it. I do.
Yeah.
But we don't know this kid or live in that regret at all, because we don't have that flashback, really. We have like a very quick snippet of like, there's the girl caught in a bombing. Maybe it went by so fast. I don't know if I pictured it or not.
Mm-hmm. No, I see your point. It's like I think that's sort of a problem that the MCU kind of has, like where if a character, it's sort of a character that doesn't get a lot of screen time or character development. An MCU movie will try to make inferences or try to kind of cajole you to care about this character through like music or through some like glances, whatever. And I think that's sort of the issue. Like this character could have been, someone you cared about more. Had honestly, I think had the reveal been done earlier, like at the end of the first act or beginning of the second act, and then have Natasha like ruminate and think about all what she's done, and have like flashes of humanity from like Dreykov's daughter Antonia.
Yeah.
I think you kind of not avoid. It's not about avoiding the issue of the whole like, oh, it's a girl reveal. It's like you do the reveal, get it out of the way, and now you focus on the character drama and just think about like with Winter Soldier, like he's revealed like not too late in the movie. He's revealed like
end of Act 2. We revealed at the end of Act 2 that it's Bucky.
Yeah. So if you did something like that, or I think you could have done it a little bit earlier, because then having that information, like imagine knowing that like Dreykov's daughter is Taskmaster, and then you have the dinner sequence and have Natasha or Yelena like maybe not confront Melina, but reveal that, and just sort of everyone think about like how much this man has like ruined and like taken advantage of people. And I think because I know why the movie made this decision. It's to make a contrast between families that, while dysfunctional, still love each other versus families that are families only in blood but not in spirit or sentiment.
Sure, and again, I don't think that transferred enough. But again, I get where the idea. I think I get where the ideas were. I don't think they translated all at the end of the day with this.
Yeah, no, we don't get enough from Dreykov's daughter for us to care about her plight as much as we should, and she's just sort of used more as like a catalyst for cool action scenes. But I think in regards to getting a traditional Taskmaster character, I think there's still a possibility for that, because you could get her helmet, you can take the chip and then put it in someone's body and do it in such a way that like they don't need they don't need a helmet. They're just attuned to do photographic memory, but it's of the level at which if they copy all the moves, like they lose their memory. So you have traditional Taskmaster. So I think people that really want Taskmaster to exist in the MCU, I think there's still a possibility, and that this was just like a reveal that was just there for that particular movie. So I think Taskmaster will come into the MCU just like the Mandarin will come to the MCU.
I mean, well, I hope you're right, and I'd like to think that too. Just given that, again, there was a point in the movie where I was wondering, are we making Taskmaster a robot because of that screen? I mean, for a moment, I thought of it, because I realized, no, it has to be a human under, otherwise it's not as impressive. They can memorize the photographic thing. It has to be a human.
I mean, the Abomination, like in that new Shang-Chi trailer, like looks more like classic comic book, Abomination. So I see the MCU taking stuff that they do earlier or like initial first drafts of characters, and are willing to, if not retool or reboot, or they'll do like successive versions of those characters. I mean, like Baron Zemo wasn't really a Baron in Civil War, but he's more of classic comic book Zemo in Falcon and Winter Soldier. So I think it's just a matter of like they wanted a character that has a name, a Taskmaster's name, and so they did their version of the character. But I think the door's still open for a traditional Taskmaster to show up, in a Disney Plus show or in another movie, a part of the Thunderbolts or whatnot.
Yeah, that's what they just felt like kind of I mean, I wanted to show up in the Deadpool movie they're doing personally. Which again, if you make him just like someone with the armor, I think that could work. So I'm hoping you're right. Maybe he'll be in the Deadpool movie or something. But again, there are other practical places like a Thunderbolts he could show up. So we'll see.
Honestly, if it was a guy Taskmaster in the Deadpool movie, like the Deadpool would definitely make jokes about like the female one, and then like speak in and ask if he's met Colossus.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. They kind of like two places they could have gone with it. They could have gone either like the amorphous route of like, it's just like, he's like Taskmaster classically. He's the trainer. You have Red Guardian who basically trained his girls versus versus Taskmaster, versus the other trainer of the MCU. And just we never show who's under the mask. And maybe that could work. I fear though, I theorize perhaps they didn't go there because of the Shang-Chi route, because you're going to have that guy in the guy in the mask in that. And that Shang-Chi is going to basically be his trainer. I think that's why we didn't do that route. I won't bet all my chips on that, but it's a theory of like why we didn't just go. We don't show him unmasked. Mm-hmm. But yeah, again, just given what we have, we should have developed it more. Yeah. Either play it or don't. All right, so there's not a whole lot to cover. Like the base is falling as the climax. I think it's a great money shot for the film. We kind of it's what if the helicarrier did actually crash? It's kind of a cool idea.
Yeah.
I love the development of the Red Room over the years of the MCU. Like Agent Carter, we visited the earliest version of the Red Room and its beginnings, and then with Ultron we get like a peek at back when it was like ground level, and now we're seeing it's in it's not in space, but it's like Moonraker, but it's close to it.
Yeah.
And we red dust everyone, we fix all the Black Widows, that's good, and then we kind of get to the ending here where the family makes with their goodbyes. What do you think about how things kind of wrapped up?
I was surprised nobody died off with the cast. I always thought like, oh, this movie would be a tragic end where, one character dies off, one character is revealed to be the bad guy, and then Yelena is like, if she's, maybe she faked her death or they survive and Yelena just goes her separate ways from Natasha. And then Yelena comes back into like the fold with Nat's death. So, but the way things ended, like, there's at least a 2-year period, before this, between that and the snap of Yelena, Red Guardian, and Melina just doing stuff. And I'm wondering, like, are we going to explore that in a Disney Plus show, movie, or because, like, I want to know, like, all right, like, did they liberate all the Black Widows within that 2-year span? Did Yelena got snapped?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's again, I didn't think about the whole snapping thing, but my main thing was that basically we in lieu of killing them off, we kept them. We have to explain why they're busy and why they don't show up in the other things. And my assumption is that they're curing all the Black Widows like we set up at the end of the movie. That's just my assumption. That's why we put that in there to explain why they're not in the other stuff.
Honestly, like with that many Black Widows, it'd be kind of cool. Like if they ever do like a big Infinity War Endgame level like Avengers movie sometime in the future. Like you have the Wakandan army, the Atlantean army, and then you have the army of Black Widows.
Yeah, like next time Secret Wars rolls around. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. All right. Something I want to highlight though. I love the vest payoff so much. I thought the vest payoff was it was a cute tribute. The idea that when Natasha, she goes into the the Infinity War, kind of like Secret Avengers, with Cap and Falcon. The idea, she has like the blonde hair now because she's in hiding and everything, and she's wearing this green vest. I love that we gave it an origin as like a loving nod to her sister after the arc that she went through in the movie. I thought that was really cute. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, she's saving went from one family to fixing the other. In terms of the ending, yeah, I think it's. I'll admit, I think the jump to 2 weeks later. I mean, it's a bit of a jip. I mean, it doesn't hurt the movie, but it's like, how does she? We know she's going to escape Ross, but it's kind of a question: how does she escape Ross if she's surrendering? That's my thing. Like, she could have just gotten away now. Why is she surrendering?
Yeah, maybe like.
I assume Kat broke her out. That's my assumption, but we don't see that. We can't see that.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy that like. Yeah, I kind of wonder if the Nat having a Quinjet like gets Cap, and then that's how they're able to break out Team Cap.
Yeah, I mean, basically what we're led to, we've now kind of worked her into the ending of Civil War, which is fine. Just the idea that, so Cap and Black Widow, like Black Widow flew him there on the Quinjet, and then he infiltrated the raft and broke basically the willing participants out, because, Ant-Man and Hawkeye stay behind for their families. So that's how that goes. Yeah. And I got to tell you, though, the Fireflies were nice in the opening. I don't know know if it was a compelling visual to end the movie on. I'm not sure about that. I don't know if I don't know. It kind of ended more on Natasha's story than it did like an Avengers story. Like, we know she's going to Infinity War and Secret Avengers, which is, I always thought the movie was going to end there, either in a post-credit scene or something, but we didn't
Honestly,
necessarily.
With the whole theme of family, like, it would have been better if, like, the cameras, like, the last image is like a zoom in on the shot of Yelena and Natasha when they were kids.
Yeah.
Or like a photo of, or like a family photo.
Yeah, like that, or like the little thing photo booth thing that she had with the the red dust vials.
Or, like Nat walks off into the distance or whatever, and like American Pie plays in the background.
Yeah, like something like that. At the very least, she's on the Quinjet and she plays American Pie. So I don't know, maybe something.
Yeah.
All right. So the post credits, and we've already talked a little bit about it. So let's not. I don't want to belabor it too much. Just Elena visiting her sister's grave. It's a very bittersweet ending that was inevitable, and I thought it was like, I think hear the audience getting emotional, like, oh, it's like the collective awe. Like,
He has
yeah,
a dog named after one of Natasha's aliases.
yeah. And so Val.
I do have a question though. It's like, I wonder, like, who's the one that decided to make a gravestone in like Ohio? Like, I guess with like all the files that was leaked out of Shield, there must have been information about like Natasha growing up in quote unquote in her spy family in Ohio, and so
Yeah,
someone made the idea too. Yeah,
it was all leaked on the internet at the end of Winter Soldier. So sure.
yeah.
All right, let's see. All right. So Val shows up, kind of our new darker Nick Fury, if you will. Kind of, she's again the very morally the morally gray side of things. But we're not sure how bad she's gonna be necessarily. But she's definitely, again, Dark Avengers not have like a sunny connotation to it, or Thunderbolts.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about her is like, I think I came upon one of the YouTube channels I follow, Nanda versus Movies, made this astute observation about Valentina in the MCU. Is that Valentina, she has the name, of the character, and she has some of the look, but in terms of like personality and disposition, she's more in line with Victoria Hand for Marvel Comics than like, say, Valentina.
Of course, it's ironic because we've had Victoria Hand in the MCU.
I think like the MCU Valentina would be like a combination of both Valentina Allegra and then Victoria Hand, and I wouldn't be surprised if she's like has dealings with Secretary Ross.
We'll see. I think you might be on to something there. So the big cliffhanger is that she basically wants Elena to kill Clint Barton, who, because of the stuff on Vormir, which basically this is the man responsible for your sister's death. Which, I mean, again, is a very mischaracterization of that whole situation. But I mean, he was there, and again, like, it was one of them had to go over.
Yeah, I kind of wonder how much of the time heist is public information.
Well, I mean, there was, again, I'm sure like there was like a lot of questions in the aftermath of what happened in in Infinity War. I mean, we know the blanks of Infinity War were filled in publicly. The question of Endgame 2 is like, I imagine people are going to, well, what happened to everybody? Where did we go? We had to come back. Who saved us? I'm sure, like, here's the thing. The fact that Black Widow has like things left on her grave, I think, is an intimation of the story got out that she made the big sacrifice that helped bring everyone back. Like, her and the Hulk really, kind of essentially saved humanity in that sense, in that, with the snap and everything. So I'm sure that got out somehow. I mean, the fact that there were things left in her grave and people knew that she died, I'm sure that kind of, there had to be an explanation of some kind. So I don't know how detailed they went with it, but I'm sure the higher ups definitely got the details, like your Victoria, like your Vals.
Yeah, but with the post-credit scene, like, we're definitely going to be seeing Yelena in the Hawkeye show.
Yeah, I mean, that was already kind of confirmed she was going to show up in it, but now we've given her like a pointed reason for being there, which, here's the question. I wonder if they're going to have the guts, because I think the assumption is, okay, there's going to be like a fight, meet cute, and then we're going to set the record straight, and then she'll be on the good guy's side. But imagine if, now think about it, Hawkeye's days are numbered. Now we're passing the torch to Kate Bishop. Now, I thought that Wanda might kill him like she did in the comics, at least for a spell. Like, she kind of killed him temporarily, and the fact that those characters had a bond in the MCU might make that even more poignant. Now, we don't exactly know what's up with Wanda until Doctor Strange, but let's just say, for argument's sake, what if Elena doesn't clear up the misunderstanding before she gets to him, like before she possibly kills him.
I highly doubt that will happen. I think, well, honestly, I think Clint Barton, if he were to be killed off, I think he'd likely be killed off in a movie.
I mean, we kind of teed that up and we didn't do it though. And again, he doesn't really. It sounds like he doesn't want to do much else other than the Hawkeye show. It sounds. I think he's like looking for a way out with this show. Personally, that's kind of what I've heard. But I don't know.
No, because the reason why I think he'll die in a movie is because, like, there's Disney Plus shows that are really popular, but not everyone has Disney Plus. And versus like everyone can, just watch a movie, just pay like a ticket, a one lump sum versus a monthly subscription.
You do make a point there, yeah.
I think a big change is that like really impact like characters, motivations, actions, and all that stuff will likely show up in, will likely occur in a movie. And so, like, I think the way the Disney Plus shows are designed with characters that originally came from the movies, they're designed. I think they're going to be designed in a way where like you have some character development and some change, some slight changes, but not too much. So that way, if those characters reappear in a movie, it's not too confusing for them to be explained away to a casual audience that just watches the movies and not like following every development with the Disney Plus show.
I think you make an excellent point with that. I didn't consider. I think you might. I think you're right on that. Okay, so one thing I want to note, though, look, we're in a possible age of miracles here. We know he's on the horizon. At least the namesake this character spins off from, with Daredevil, possibly in some way, shape, or form. Daredevil's, and I won't believe it until I see it, folks. I want this very badly. I want Daredevil to be officially in the MCU. I want to set that record straight. Once that happens, we'll see how that goes. But my point is, if we in fact begin to introduce Daredevil into things, Bullseye on the Dark Avengers of the Thunderbolts as Val's Hawkeye could be really cool.
I think it will be unlikely for that to happen. I mean, I think if there was like a Val's version of a Hawkeye. I mean, Hawkeye has a brother who is an antagonist, who was like a villain / antagonist that like turned good. So I wouldn't be surprised if the brother gets introduced in like a second or third season of Hawkeye, and then is recruited by Val to join like the Thunderbolts as like their version of a Hawkeye trick shot.
Oh man, darn curse you! We're hitting your excellent points, raining on my Daredevil hopes. But no, that's an excellent. I forgot. I'm thinking about
considering potential legal issues for Clint Barton, because he did kill people.
Yeah,
who were criminals. There's the possibility for Daredevil to be coming to represent Clint Barton.
We'll see. But I'm just saying, though, in terms of like the Thunderbolts, we had Bullseye in the Hawkeye. I'm not saying we're going to put him in the Hawkeye costume, but the fact that, he was on the Thunderbolts is what gets me excited about that. But no, the trick shot's a good point. We'll see. We'll see how that works out. Okay,
we could have Daredevil show up in Clint Barton to help legally represent either Clint or Kate. Or like, maybe there's a conflict because how there's the tracksuit mafia in Hawkeye.
Yep. Yeah.
Maybe Daredevil could be representing like one of the low level goons in the tracksuit mafia, and that brings him into conflict with Clint and Kate, and then Daryl, and then Bat puts on his Daredevil costume to get involved in the situation to help them out in a way.
I like to think the She-Hulk shows when we're getting a lot of this courtroom stuff, and maybe that'll be kind of like the big Nexus kind of. Well, Nexus is now a word I can't use because now Nexus means many things in the MCU. It's kind of like the big
central hub.
Yeah, the big central hub of kind of our legal stuff, which again I think would be the backdoor way of getting Daredevil in the MCU in a big way through She-Hulk, which makes perfect sense,
I mean, isn't also like in Dan Slott's run? Isn't there like a law firm that deals with like multi-dimensional stuff?
I think so. I can't name it, but I think you're something like that.
Yeah. So maybe that could help connect She-Hulk with Loki.
Maybe.
It has hearings, so maybe if the TV still exists, maybe it's reformed where there's an actual like administrative hearing, and like a variant retains like She-Hulk or some lawyer from that multiverse firm as like counsel.
Right. It's a good idea. Okay, so let's let's start to wrap up. You why don't you give us your final thoughts? Like, how do you feel the movie after talking about it, after kind of sitting with it for a while? Like, how do you feel about Black Widow?
I think upon rewatch this movie, I still will enjoy it. I think it's certainly above average in terms of the MCU. It's certainly not one of the in my like top 10, but I think like top 15, top 20 of the MCU films, I would certainly appreciate that. Beyond that, I guess people are sort of disappointed that it's not as good of a like cap off for the characters as it should be. But I think it was good, for where it is, and it'd be interesting to see how one feels for that movie if you watch it in like chronological order versus release order. I mean, you kind of would have to sort of not look at the post credit scene because then it just jumps like a few years forward. But I think it would be interesting to see, when you put that movie chronologically, like how you interpreted Natasha's journey moving forward, like that, like Civil War to Endgame.
Right. For me, final thoughts. The tragedy of this film, it's kind of cursed to be late in that we should have gotten this so much earlier in terms of getting Black Widow a movie.
Yeah.
Who knows? I think a part of me thinks it may have played better in some aspects. I mean, even with like some of the weaker aspects, in terms of like it's. Like again, like the whole we would have circumvented the whole it's a girl under the mask. It would have been literally before the time before it came commonplace. This would have been the first time we did, and again, maybe it'd been stronger, maybe it would have played better. Who knows?
Yeah.
But the film itself, this is a film that shows the growth of Natasha Romanoff. It gives her closure. It's got great action. It's fun. It's got a real nice sense of family. And at the end of the day, maybe not as graceful and posy as Yelena would say, as graceful and posy as I hoped it would be. But it's not quite the Black Widow movie, but it's a good Black Widow movie, and I can live with that.
No, honestly, with the characters that are there and are still alive in the movie, I think that sets up potential for more of what people want in a Black Widow movie. I think it's just a victim of its time, and the fact that Scarlett Johansson didn't get the opportunity to do her own like Black Widow movie trilogy, like Cap, Iron Man, and Thor. I guess the way it was, it has such a strong supporting cast that with the Yelena being the next Black Widow, we could have like a really good Black Widow movie. But and all the like adventures that Natasha Romanoff has in the comics and her recent runs, you can just take those adventures and just have Yelena be the protagonist, in that role.
I want to thank our commenters for tuning in. Donovan Martin, who again give you his final thoughts. I overall enjoyed this movie a lot. I also appreciated that it took a more complex route with Natasha's family, in quotes, because again it's kind of it's a unique family.
Yeah.
The family dynamic with them being more of a circumstantial family instead of a blood one. Thank you, Donovan. Atomic Beast and Executive.
Yeah. Before we end off, I will say that in light of how well the family dynamic is written and like directed, like I think this gives us good hope for how the Fantastic Four is going to be, because with all these like really good family dynamics in a lot of the movies, I think that puts more confidence in that the MCU can really handle the family drama aspect of the Fantastic Four.
Yeah. I think that is an excellent point to go out on, Rohit. Man, you rock. That's awesome. That's a great point. We are preparing our family dynamics for the FF. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thanks for joining us, folks. See you next time. We talk some more MCU, more Spoilercast, and things of the like down the line in the next adventure in the sacred timeline of the MCU.
Family.